legislation of the state. They tell you, they dictate what rates that y'all have to match or contribute into the plan, and they prescribe the benefits. The OPEB liability, that's what that would be a county decision. That would be something that you guys could change ultimately, the benefits that you would provide your employees. Last year's liability for the pension was $23.1 million, so it's up roughly $2 million from the prior year at 25.2. The next thing that I want to highlight, you can flip to page 13 and page 15. I'll be flipping between those two schedules, but carving out the general fund and just looking at it for the moment, which is that far left-hand column, your general fund balance actually decreased $400,000 to $21.5 million at the end of June 30, 2018. But the unassigned fund balance is still in a healthy position. So unassigned is there's no prior commitments to that money. There's no restrictions to that money. So that money could be spent at any discretion that council or administration would see fit. One item that I like to do, and I did this calculation last year, is take the total unassigned fund balance, which is $13.2 million, and compare that to your general fund expenditure actual budget for 2018 to come up with a monthly spend or a monthly run out. For this year's approximately 5.6 months is available in spending at June 30, 2018. That is down by last year. The calculation was 7 months. The main driver in that is when you had the agreement with Providence Hospital, we had to put $4 million in escrow. So when we put that money in escrow, we actually had to restrict that money. So it came out of that unassigned row and went into the restricted row. You can see health and welfare line item. Just a couple reasons. I'm sure y'all are well aware, but the cash flow for a county, it's very cyclical because your main revenue source is property taxes. So the majority of those will come in January, and it really needs to fund the entire year. So that's a primary driver why that unassigned fund balance needs to be in a healthy position. It also demonstrates fiscal responsibility by those charged with governance. It provides readiness for emergencies or unanticipated expenditures. And obviously, it's extremely important given potential uncertainties in the economy, especially with the state and the legislation that sometimes dictates what the county will receive in a given year. The only other major fund outside of the general fund in this year is the Fairfield Facilities Corporation. It reflected a decrease in fund balance of $4.5 million, but the ending fund balance is $5.9 million. You will see all of that fund balance, or pretty much the whole balance, is in restricted, specifically restricted for capital outlay. Non-major column, similar. 1.5 million decrease and 5.9 in fund balance at the end of the year, pretty evenly split between restricted and committed. While those funds showed a decrease in fund balance, that should be expected when you are incurring capital outlay expenditures. So typically those revenues come in prior years, so you showed a real large increase in those years, and then it will provide for future construction spending later on down the road. Speaking of capital outlay, the county in total invested $9.9 million in this current year. One item, it's not effective for next year or the following year, but GASB is coming out with another standard related to lease accounting. It's following suit with what the for-profit FASB standard setters are doing, and essentially any lease that's over 1 year long is having to show up on your balance sheet whether you're the lessor or the lessee. So any lease transaction that you all have that would expand 1 year and 1 day, we would have to increase the balance sheet with an asset and then increase it with a corresponding liability. So just be forward thinking. I'm telling all the counties that I work with, let's plan ahead for this. It's not going to, it's going to change your balance sheet up dramatically, but it's going to be pretty much grossing it up as opposed to really changing net position like the GASB 68 and 75, what they did. The last section of the report that I wanted to hit on, it starts on page 76. It's our single audit section, and it's essentially our compliance reporting for the county. There's 2 additional reports that are required that are listed back there. The first of which is required under governmental auditing standards, and it's based on our tests of internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. It actually states in that report that we're not providing an opinion on internal controls. We just have to notify the county if we identify any deficiencies in controls that would reach the magnitude of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Similar to prior years, we've had a reoccurring finding related to bank reconciliations, and specifically the timely preparation and review of those bank reconciliations. I would say that this finding actually trickled into another, not just the Treasurer's Office this year, but another department that had been historically performing their own reconciliations. But the third party that helps the Treasurer's Office, they also helped this other department, which ultimately got them behind. So we have definitely alerted the administration and finance of this finding. And we're working through with them to make sure everybody understands what our expectations are on that. We consider bank reconciliations one of the most important internal controls that a county could have. The second report is regarding counties' controls over compliance over specifically federal awards. So the CFA schedule is included in this document, and that is on page 80. The county had federal expenditures of those federal awards of just over $1.1 million this year, which is up in from prior years, and that it's required by the Single Audit Act that the federal government established, and that we actually do issue an opinion on compliance over the major federal programs that we test. This year, which we have tested in the past, was the largest grant, and it was the Airport Improvement Program. We tested that again and found no issues, and we had no findings related to any non-compliance matters. Just wanted to wrap up in summary, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, we issued another unmodified opinion. In our opinion, we think the county is in good financial condition as of June 30, 2018. We have really appreciated working with the county. We really enjoy the finance department and the treasurer's office. They are extremely helpful in getting us what we need, and just a pleasure to work with during the entire audit process.
Any council member has any questions?
I would suggest that the staff gives us this information before he comes up here to speak. He could say anything he wanted to because we haven't had a chance to even look at this information. I'd love to be able to, look at it first before he made his talk.
Any other council member?
There's one question, and you may have said this, but one of the things I'm thinking about, what is the one thing that we did really good as it related to the finance, and the one thing we need to do to make some improvement?
One thing that you did was, I think you're managing a couple tough situations, specifically VC Summer and the hospital, the relationship with the hospital. In working through this year, specifically for the hospital, you over the years have lent them money, and I had questioned, hey, I know we need to make an investment in the hospital. You have to have that type of facility here in the county, but I almost just saw it as a losing battle. But now getting a partner here in the county that is going to bring something to the table, and takes that burden. I guess your commitment now. You put it in paper. We actually have a footnote related to that commitment, and just managing that from good business sense, but also for your citizens here, knowing that something needed to change. I thought that was a great positive. Something that continues to be a challenge is managing these liabilities that are sort of out of your control, and this is across the board with any South Carolina county or really any government across the country. You are South Carolina particularly, and I can flip to better.
Are you talking about the pensions?
The pension and the OPEB liability. Both plans are severely underfunded. I believe the South Carolina retirement system is only 53% funded from what that liability is. And again, going back to that particular one, it's out of the county's hand, but as South Carolina governmental members, I think what Gadsby wanted to do was get everybody talking about it so everybody could do a better job managing it. I think the state is coming around to that, but you all as a county sort of have to work with what they give you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. Next, I just wanted to update council on the Fairfield Joint Water and Sewer Authority. We did have our first meeting of that board last week. It was a successful meeting where we signed the incorporation documents and we elected officers. The chairman of that particular board is Mayor Gaddy. The vice chairman is our own chairman, Neil Robinson, and myself. I'm serving as the treasurer, and Patty Davis is serving as our secretary. Also, in one final item to report to council, I want to let everyone know, as most of you are aware, for many years, in fact, we were operating our fuel farm, our gas tanks, at the airport without a proper DHEC permit. We have gone through that process. We essentially threw ourselves at their mercy to make sure that we brought it up to code, because again, we're moving toward the process of replacing that fuel farm. The old one is outdated, and we had to pull those tanks out of the ground. Again, didn't meet DHEC code. DHEC has come in. They've looked at everything we've done. We've got a clean bill of health, and we can now move forward in compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Now down to our clerk to council's report, Ms. Davis.
Mr. Chairman, council members, we have set our budget date schedule. The first reading of the budget will be at the regular meeting on April the 8th. We'll have a budget work session with the departments on April the 16th, which is a Tuesday. The second reading and the public hearing will be April the 22nd at the regular meeting. Budget work session with departments April the 23rd, which is a Tuesday. Budget work session with agencies, April the 25th, which is a Thursday. Budget work session, if needed, April the 30th, which is a Tuesday. And the third and final reading at the regular meeting on May the 13th.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Also, one other thing. This just came in late on Friday. The next intergovernmental meeting hosted by Town of Ridgeway will be March the 26th at 6:30. And I'll be getting with everyone to check on the RSVP.
Thank you. Now down to our second public comment session. Anyone sign to speak?
We have, 4 speakers. First, Jackie Workman speaking on visions.
All right.
All right. Good evening to all. Jackie Workman, District 4. Since the beginning of 2019, we the citizens have continued to ask council to support A, the monument to be placed on the purchased land in Jenkinsville with 5 specific names, with others being purchased as requested. B, requested a rail and pier to be built on Cold Trussell Road near Schaefer Ridge. C, and this one saddens me about Mifford, multi-purpose half courts into full courts, and Councilman Moses Bell would like the same, a multi-purpose full court in Ridgeway. All 3 named requests are short-range goals, and no response have been given nor action taken. When will the citizens hear from the council? I have in my hand, and I'm going to ask Ms. Patty if she would make some copies for the other council members, but I have in my hand documentation received from FARC stating that FARC approved scanner request to remove the 8.12 acres parcel land on July 10th, 2017 of land from the project boundary at the Par Shores Hydroelectric Project number 1894 on February 6, 2018, a year ago. Also, Scanner Realtor Bart Wright stated the lease is binding with Fairfield County. Why haven't we been informed about this 1-year-old decision? Can the county move forward with the original plan? And I would just like to say, when your thoughts, council, words, and actions line up in a familiar way, only then will council achieve the requested short-range goals. And you don't even have to say amen tonight. I am asking council to let your imagination take over. Draw it. See it in your mind. And write it down and make it plain. And I know you all know that. Let your mind run free with the possibilities of what you can attain and accomplish as council of Fairfield County. Thank you. One for the chairman, one for Mr. Pope, and one for Mr. Anderson. And she's going to make comments for the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Carol Turner, speaking on revenue streams.
I've spoken enough.
Okay, thank you. Next, Benny Clowney, speaking on the Teacher Village. Okay, thank you. Next, Mr. Randy Bright, updates.
Randy Bright, Ridgeway, Fairfield County, District 1. I'd like to revisit a couple things. One's really very pertinent to tonight's discussion. We had talked actually a couple of times about when we get around to the second ordinance reading, that we post online the pertinent details of that ordinance. And tonight it was brought up that, let's ensure that we post those in layman's terms. But one of the things that I think that, and we mentioned this before, that those pertinent details should include is answers to the questions that were asked at the first reading. You can do this on Facebook with a link to the county website, giving us all the necessary details, and usually that's just like the newspaper, who, what, where, and where, why. And that would help us a lot to understand and to support or not support with the second ordinance reading. And that would offer the kind of transparency that you guys have been working towards and actually demonstrating actually the past couple of years. So I'd just like to remind you of that request that we've made, is to get all the pertinent details besides just a couple little things in a line. We have to, if you just use the your handheld smartphone, you have to spread out the Facebook post and try to make do of a few little updates. So let's look at that, get pertinent details for Ordinance 2 out to the public, and including in that would be our questions that we ask at the first reading, or any subsequent questions if a citizen asks a council member in the meantime via telephone or email. And I know there's some people that might do that on occasion. The other thing that update I'd like to hear, there was some contention and some issue concerning the Lake Watery project that was mentioned last meeting. And that Lake Watery project, there was apparently there was some pushback from Duke not wanting to do all their due diligence responsibilities, and I would hope that we would hold our ground. So remember, Duke's not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're not even really paying for it. We as taxpayers are. So hold them to everything they're responsible. It's the federal government that's making them do this, nothing else. So let's let them. Don't let them weasel out of this, as kind of intimated last time. So I'd like an update on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes segment 2.
All right, thank you. Now we're down to county council time. Any councilman would like to be recognized? Mr. Douglas.
When I ran for the county council, I ran the District 2 council for the District 2 council seat because I live in District 2. That means I'm responsible for all the projects being planned in my district. Chairman Robinson is responsible for District 6. Vice Chairman Goins, District 4. Councilman Gilbert, District 7. Councilman Pauley, District 5. Councilman Trout, 3. And Councilman Bell, 1. If any council member goes to another district other than his own to conduct any type of business, he should contact the person over this district for permission and tell him why he needs to go out of his district. A citizen or taxpayer can go to any district they wish to and visit if the property is not private. The whole Watery Lake is my district except for a small portion of Colonel Creek. Duke Energy has plans to improve Molly Creek, Colonel Creek, Taylor Creek, and Watery Creek for anyone to use. They plan on starting with Molly Creek in the fourth quarter of this year and then decide where else they will go afterwards it is finished. We had a meeting, and I wrote Jennifer Bennett a letter back. We enjoyed meeting with you and Mr. Crutchfield. When we had our telephone conference call with Mr. Jolly and Mr. Crutchfield, everyone was excited and could not wait for the project to be completed and Fairfield County take over. But what was explained today was different. During our telephone conversation with Mr. Crutchfield, he went over the project recreation area and said if the county took over that part, Duke, if someone leased it, would set up an RV camping area, which was a non-project. It was explained each site would have electrical and water hookups and a sewage disposal tank on site. I told her, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, but I think Duke would be, in my opinion, better qualified to run this park and would be old hat because it had so many more like Molly Creek. Fairfield County, I'm sure, will help you in any way we can. Again, nice to have met you. Jim Ray Douglas, Fairfield County District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Any other council member like to be recognized? Well, if not, I'll just say, we've definitely listened to citizens in reference to the ag and his hospitality tax. When I ran for council, constituents basically say they want to change. I imagine with each council member, same thing. Just keep in mind with change, you have to. There's change associated with change, so you have to prepare yourself to welcome everything that comes with that change. So, all right. Well, we don't have any executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Any opposed?
Nope.
6-0. We adjourn.